Hi everybody, this is Kayla, LuckyVitamin's Junior Category Manager of Vitamins, Minerals, and Herbs. It's great to have so many people joining us today for the LuckyVitamin Wellness Webinar, Detoxing and Cleansing, presented by Michael Schwartz, founder of Michael's Naturopathic Program. Thank you all very much. Michael Schwartz, president of Michael's Naturopathic Programs, has worked in the natural food industry since 1975 as a sales rep, a retailer, teacher, naturopathic counselor, and as a producer of nutritional supplements and other products. His first naturopathic formulas designed to nourish and support the body in its natural return to harmony and good health were created originally for family, friends, and clients. When Michael founded his supplement company in 1984, these formulas were offered to the public. Those formulas and the ones for each of the nearly 100 products offered today are designed to be synergistically complete. That is, they contain all the nutrients in the right amounts and combinations to produce optimum results that can be felt in the body in a very short period of time. Michael pioneered the synergistically complete concept, which has become an industry standard, as well as his gender-specific supplements. His belief in the principles of naturopathy has led him to roll out offerings anything not in the true spirit of health, such as hormone or glandular-based products or fads. Michael's naturopathic program uses only tried and true formulas based on principles of healing. Before I turn things over, just a few quick reminders. This webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you after its conclusion. If you have any questions during today's webinar, please enter them into the question box on your screen. At the end of the webinar, we will try to answer as many as possible. The promotional code will be given at the end of the presentation and will be available for 72 hours. Thank you all again, and I'm going to turn this over to Michael. Hey, Michael, we can't hear your audio. Michael, is your phone muted? We still can't hear any of your audio.
It's only because I'm a space cadet. Thank you so much for bringing it back to me. Yes, I did have the mute on.
Okay, good.
Okay, everybody hold in there. It's really going to be worth your while, okay? So the first thing that comes up, and I can't clear my screen, but I can look at it. Hopefully yours is clearer. Why should you detox and cleanse? It's really very simple. It all deals with being healthy. You know, I did a show the other day, and I talked about getting ready for old age. And if you want to have a fabulous old age or elder years and want to avoid what your parents are going through, then detoxing and cleansing is certainly an avenue to investigate, along with other avenues like diet and exercise and supplements. And the reason you need to detox is because pollutants are everywhere. I don't know about your TV station, but we get a allergen report And one of the things that always comes up is mold. Mold is in the air here. There's particulates in the air. We're ingesting them. And when you breathe in something that is more than just air, imagine that if you worked in a nail salon or a beauty salon, and just imagine what happens when you go there, okay? You are inhaling gases, and these are toxins because your body has to deal with them. So you've got pollutants in the air, there are toxins and pollutants in the water, and there are certainly toxins and pollutants in the food. And we'll discuss all those and what to do about them. And then, believe it or not, your body also generates toxins in the sense of free radicals through metabolic processes, plus the fact that in the metabolic process and the process of mitosis and making new cells and old cells dying, they too leave a debris. Now, if that debris is left to aggregate, let me rephrase that, if you did not have an ongoing detoxification process, and if you did not make the effort to detox and cleanse, you would be dead. It's really that simple. Because what happens is that the body ceases to function at optimal levels, and then eventually the congestion will shut you down. So the question comes up for most is, where are these toxins? Well, first and foremost, the toxins are, as I told you, how they're coming in, and through the digestion process, the toxins end up in your bloodstream. Now, you may have clarifiers, acidifiers, emulsifiers, flavor enhancers, color enhancers, and it really doesn't matter. The bottom line is that you have chemicals that are inside your body, in your bloodstream, floating around, that are alien to the body. And the reason I make that distinction is because later when we talk about supplementation, there are movements in the health food industry that are currently going on. And it's important to realize how the body functions and works. And everything is at a molecular level. So at a molecular level, when your body is recreating itself, because from one point of view, the oldest cell in your body, let me back up, there are 3 cells that do not replicate. The rest of your cells are only 7 years old. So that raises a couple of questions. Why do I look this way and why do I feel this way? And part of it is because you're toxic. So because the body is divine and has its own innate intelligence and it seeks balance and harmony, it will use whatever is in your bloodstream as building material. This is why it comes up, in my mind, what are you using as your building material? What is your diet like? What are you drinking? What are you inhaling? These are things that, as they're there, your body will utilize them. Now, as in the process of mitosis, one of 3 things that could happen, okay? If you remember Murphy's Law, which, by the way, was not really stated by Murphy, but by a guy by the name of Finnegan, but we all know it as Murphy's Law, and that is if something can go wrong, it will. Right now, at this very moment, each and every one of us is making 1 billion new cells. And depending upon what you had for lunch will determine the amount of corruption that you're facilitating, okay? Now, some of you may remember, some of you kids out there may be my age, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am because I don't want to give away trade secrets. I'm like a woman in that regard. But some of you kids may remember the math problem in high school of taking the penny and doubling the amount every day. And at the end of 30 days, you had $5 million in cash, plus more. Same thing takes place with your body. Let us say conversationally that you've made these 1 billion new cells, and out of the 1 billion new cells, 800 million are perfect. 200 million are corrupted. How did they get corrupted? When the body was going through the process of mitosis, making new cells, when a cell divides into two components, it will use what's available in the bloodstream. So if it pulls a toxin in, the toxin may corrupt the DNA. Now you have a cell that not only does not look right, it doesn't function properly either. And so this basically is the foundation of aging and disease. Now, it's your immune system's job to eliminate that cell, but of 200 million, some are going to get away. And later on, we will talk about how to strengthen the immune system to really slow down the aging process. And that's the goal here, not only to slow down the aging process so that you can maintain youthful, beautiful skin and look and vitality and energy, but also to ensure that you're going to have good health. So that's one thing that can go wrong. Now, there are two other things that can go wrong. I would like for you to imagine in your mind's eye a picket fence. A toxin has come along and opened up the gate on that fence. Now you have just lost the ability in the genes within the cell, because the genes manufacture proteins. You just lost the ability to manufacture the protein that will hunt down tumors and eliminate them from your body. The other thing that can happen, and again, I'd like you to visualize that picket fence in the genes. The gate is supposed to be open. Now, a toxin comes along and closes the gate. Guess what? You now have a cell that is rapidly multiplying uncontrollably. And what condition is that? What dis-ease? That, my friends, is cancer. So you can begin to see, even though they tell you they have no idea what causes cancer, that's not true. In fact, if you go to a physician and they tell you they don't know, tell them to go buy the Dorland Medical Dictionary and look it up. Now, obviously, it's been 15, 20 years since I did look it up. And when you look up cancer, it will tell you, at least it did back then, that it was caused by chemical mutations. And where are the chemicals coming from? You're eating them, you're breathing them, you're drinking them, and even worse, what people don't think about is you are applying them to your skin. Because everything you put on your skin enters up in your bloodstream. And all these fragrant things that people have in their houses and their cars, you're gassing yourself. I mean, I don't understand how they work, I will tell you that. But the fact is that it's an aerosol and it's a gas and it eliminates the aroma. How does it eliminate the smell? What chemical is doing that? What chemical are you ingesting through respiration? Okay? So it's an issue. Now, the way the body functions is that you have these toxins that we said are in your bloodstream. And as your bloodstream goes into the liver, your liver does a couple of different things immediately. First and foremost, it tries to render the toxins harmless, liquid, gas, or solid, so that they can be passed out of the body without doing any damage to any cells. And so the liver is working nonstop as a chemical factory to safeguard you. What cannot be rendered harmless will end up being stored in fat. And this is one of the reasons why, and I don't know, I don't listen to the news anymore, but I remember the last time it was talking about how much advances they're making on cancer, but the truth of the matter is brain cancer, and you probably know a child or of a child from a friend, a neighbor, relative. Brain cancer in children is up 68%. And by the way, these numbers are from 2009 when I was having a conversation with a cancer researcher. We went going through this. Testicular cancer in young men between 16 and 27 is up 67%. Breast cancer, men are developing it more and more. And what we're seeing in the health food stores is younger women with breast cancer. In fact, people are getting sicker younger than ever before. So when the liver, which is one of your second lines of defense, your immune system is your first line of defense. So your liver is the second line of defense. You want it operating at optimal efficiency. So the first question that comes up is, what hinders the liver from operating at optimal levels? The answer is really very simple. It's your diet, more than anything else. If you're eating fried foods, well, trans fats, saturated fats, hydrogenated fats, all of those gum up the liver and reduce its functionality and its efficiency. And if you drink alcohol, you're just adding to the mix. So now what we end up with is a gummy liver that is not able to detoxify us quick enough. So you can begin to see the cumulative effect and how aging, I mean, I've seen people, we're aging too fast. I'll just go there and let it go at that. So those are the things that you need to examine. Read your labels. If it's got a hydrogenated fat, a trans fat, a solid fat, don't buy the product. And that's going to be a problem for some of you, because some of you, if you've tried diets, and by the way, the information and the nutrients that I'm going to give you today will actually help you to lose weight. You've got to make dietary changes in order to achieve excellent health. And one of the things you will need to understand is your emotional attachment to the food. That's why diets don't work, because if you're unwilling to give up your comfort food and unwilling to give up the foods that psychologically give you, security, well, you may be able to replace them with a healthy alternative or give them up completely. So what we want to do now is we want to degunk the liver. We want to break down those fatty deposits and get the liver to function at optimal levels. And you do that with choline, inositol, methionine. In fact, these three products in the old days were called lipotropic nutrients. They burn fat, and what that's going to do is release more toxins into your bloodstream. So drinking water during this process is essential. Also, you want to take a look at the herb milk thistle. The beautiful thing about milk thistle is that it actually will stimulate new cellular growth. But let's make sure that we're giving the body the good, healthy building material so that it makes new, healthy cells and not damaged cells, like we saw earlier in the example of the 200 million corrupted cells. And I will get back to that and share with you how to deal with that part of it. But let's get back to the beginning of where our health starts. There's two cliches. One is you are what you think, and that's a whole other animal, And I do mind-body counseling, and I'm not going to interject a lot of that because it's not necessarily appropriate here. But it is a cliche, and there's a lot of truth to that. So you should surround yourself with positive thinking people and watch positive things and read positive things. The other cliche is you are what you eat. And in that regard, again, there is a lot of truth. And so the first place we begin is the diet. Now, the diet that I recommend, first and foremost, is as much raw food as is possible. I give out two diets. One is the ideal, 80% raw, 15% cooked, 5% junk. What's realistic to do, let me rephrase that, what's doable is 60% raw, 30% cooked, 10% junk. Now, some people would say, why the junk? I mean, that sounds counterproductive. On one level, it is. But if you're trying to get your significant other, your partner, your children, your grandchildren into a healthy mode and eating healthy foods, well, if you don't allow them their indulgences, their 5%, their 10% indulgence, guess what? Their attitude, their resentment of being denied will undo all of the good you're trying to accomplish with the diet. So allow them to have their 10%. And just in case you should ever meet me out in the world and I'm sitting at a Pizza Hut having pizza and a beer, you know I'm enjoying my 10%. Okay, so we're all clear. Now, the diet is foremost. So raw foods, as much organically grown fruits, nuts, veggies, grains as is possible. When it comes to the 30% cooked, if you're going to eat meat, and you know, I have no issues with anybody's diet other than just keep it clean and healthy. If you're going to eat meat, you want free-range critters, and almost all beef is grass-fed because it's the cheapest way to feed the animals. So you've got that. When it comes to fowl, you're going to want to do turkey over chicken for the simple reason that we just mentioned a moment ago about where the toxins are stored. They're stored in the fat. So if chicken, you know that all of these critters, if they're not free range and organically fed, you know that they're chemically fed. So you know their body works the same as your body, and they're trying to get the, you know, chemicals out of their system, and so they're stored in the fat. So you want to do less fat. When it comes to seafood, take a look at, and go back to Leviticus, chapter 11, deep sea fish with scales. Now, there are a lot of, and by the way, when you go to a restaurant, if you have a tendency and you like to eat out, and there's always, you know, salmon on the menu or this on the menu, question it. Just because it's a high-class restaurant does not necessarily guarantee that they're serving you high-class food, okay? You know, there's, I'm originally from Philadelphia, and whenever I go back, I have a standing thing with a cousin of mine. And that is when he comes to visit me in Texas, I pay for everything. I take him out. When I go there, he takes me out. Well, we went to a very upscale restaurant, either out in Manayunk or City Line. I don't even remember at this point. And there was Atlantic salmon was on the menu. And I figured, oh, okay, so maybe I'll do that. And so then what happened is I asked the waiter, is this wild caught or is it farm raised? And it turned out it was farm raised. You want to avoid all farm raised food because they are more toxic than wild caught. And our oceans are getting polluted without a doubt. And there's going to be toxins. Look, there's going to be toxins no matter which way you turn in life. That's just the sad truth of it. However, that does not necessarily mean that they have to have an adverse effect on your body. You can take care of you, and you should be taking care of you because no one else is going to, okay? So, and how you can tell a piece of salmon more than any other fish is toxic or fatty with toxins in the fat is that you'll see in between the layers of flesh there'll be white, and that lets you know that it's fatty and that it's overloaded with toxins. So the diet, and when it comes to dairy, what I would say to you is less is best. You know, we're the only species that consumes dairy after we've been weaned. So, and there are alternatives to milk, to dairy. Take a look at soy milk, rice milk, almond milk that we do here at the house, that I do for my granola cereals. So take a look at that. And when it comes to water, because there's pollutants in that, I recommend distilled water. In fact, we have distillers in both our houses, and we've been doing distilled water for as long as we're married, and that's 45 years. So you can do these things as well. You know, MIDI still is a product out there. I think their distillers now are $800, but I think General Electric may have one that's less expensive. Take a look at that. If you live in a situation where you can build a solar distiller, investigate that as well. But with distilled water, at least you know you're getting a super clean product. Now, I know the question comes up because it's been asked to me at seminars time and time again. Doesn't distilled water leach minerals from your body? No, it does not, because your kidneys are what really monitor your urine, and when there's minerals in there, it will save them. It will take them out of the liquid and put them back into the body for utilization. Where kidney stones occur, it's only because that the individual does not have the other nutrients, maybe the D, the boron, hydrochloric acid, or magnesium to help the body assimilate the calcium. That's the only reason they would, that's not the only reason, but that's the primary physiological reason why they would develop kidney stones. So you just now you know everything about kidney stones and what to do about it. So these are the things that you need to keep in mind: organic foods, clean foods, free-range critters, minimizing the amount of fat coming into the system, and clean water for your teas, your coffee. Obviously, when it comes to sodas, the best thing to do with them is not even open the bottle. But that's another story. Okay, so next up we want to do, and what we're seeing here is cleanse the intestinal tract. Well, when you do a lot of organic foods, fruits and veggies, they're loaded with fiber. And this is why you want to avoid processed foods, because it's a sludge, it's not fiber. And fiber has two fundamental roles in your intestinal tract. One, it's there to gather water, because when it gets down into the colon, it's that swollen mass that triggers nerve endings in your colon. You see, evacuation works on a negative feedback system. At least that's what it's called, even though it's a positive transaction. It's called a negative feedback system. Don't ask me why. I didn't create it. So there are nerve endings in your colon wall that sense when your colon is full. That sends a message to your brain. Your brain, in turn, sends electrical impulses down those lines to tell the muscles on one level to relax, the anal sphincter to relax so that material can flow out. And then you have the muscular action that actually works the material out. So fiber cleans the villi, and the villi are little finger thingies that hang down. What, do you like that technical term, finger thingies? That hang down from the intestinal wall and up, and they have holes in them. And the reason for that is that as your food material, which is called chyme, that, from your digestion, moves through your intestinal tract, nutrients are supposed to be drawn up into your bloodstream for distribution. Not only the nutrients, but also the toxins do that as well. And fiber will keep those orifices open, so it acts as a broom, cleaning out as it goes along and gathering water so that you have that ability to evacuate easily. If there's a tendency towards constipation, well, that tells me immediately your diet needs work, and you may not be drinking enough water. In fact, we do a product called Detox and Cleanse, and then when people do that, maybe 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 10,000 will tell me they get constipated. And what happens is that because your body is divine and intelligent, because we're like with the choline and the inositol, which we used on the liver, is breaking up fatty deposits, and it's releasing toxins back into the bloodstream. Well, your body knows it needs to urinate to get those toxins out of the system. If you're not drinking enough water, it's going to harvest water from the intestinal tract. And so that is where the constipation comes from. So if you're in the tendency to drink 1 gallon of water a day, when you do a Detox and Cleanse program, you're going to need 2 gallons of water a day just to ensure that you don't end up constipated. Now, there are herbs that you can use. Now, I'm not a firm believer, or not even a soft believer, in Cascara Sagrada or any of the harsh laxatives. I just don't think that it's a good thing to do, because once you get into laxatives, you literally begin to train your body to be lazy. Now your body is waiting for a horrible stimulant to force it into action. And in truth, you don't want to do that. It's like taking a drug. You really don't want to do that. You want to nourish your body into optimal wellness and optimal functionality. Okay? So some of the herbs that you could use would be senna, which is mild. Butternut bark is a mild herb, and they're probably the only two herbs from a laxative point of view that come to mind. And also, take a look at prunes and prune juice and other natural ways of ensuring elimination. But the key is going to be your diet. The more raw foods you eat, the better off you will be. Okay? Now, we talked about the bloodstream, and it really is, it's a highway, It makes you or breaks you from this point of view. Whatever is in your bloodstream is feeding your cells. As we went through the process of mitosis so that you need to have a clean bloodstream. And at the same time, your bloodstream is also a transportation system in the sense that every single cell in your body eats, breathes, drinks. Now, some people would tell you that every cell thinks and holds on to emotions. I'm not of that mindset. I don't believe that. So having said that, but the cells are still eating, breathing, drinking, and processing, having metabolic processes. And where is that waste going? It's in your bloodstream. So you can begin to see the need to wash your bloodstream, to urinate as frequently as you can, because you're making toxic material. You may be consuming, ingesting, breathing, drinking toxic material. So you can begin to see the need to get these things out of your system. Now, your body has a natural detoxification system, because if it didn't, you'd be dead. You become septic and we expire. So what does it take to do it? And there you see the 4 key minerals: iron, zinc, manganese, molybdenum. Now, many of you may already be taking a multivitamin. And depending upon the brand you're taking, it's questionable how many milligrams of minerals you're really getting. In fact, some people have moved on to the gummies, which I don't get at all, which I think is horrible because there's too much sugar. And the more sugar you bring into the body, the worse it is for the body. I don't care whether it's organic or not. From a health point of view, sugar can be an addiction, and you're just feeding the addiction. And then to give it to kids, and you want healthy kids, you're training them to eat gummies, you're training them to eat candy. What's the difference? Because the amount of nutrients in them is minuscule. Then you have another philosophy about food-bound, food-grown, food-enhanced. You take a look at that multivitamin, and you're looking at vitamins in the range of 3, 5, maybe 10 milligrams. Not nearly enough to keep you healthy based on what you want to do. And I know from the presentation that you're going to assimilate 100% of that nutrient. Well, the catch-22 is, and then the other statement is, they say that you're only going to get 70% of the isolates. Now, the problem is that your B vitamins are water dispersible, so you're going to go through them, and not instantaneously, but you're going to go through them, and stress depletes them to begin with. Not to mention the fact that your body runs on enzymes and proteins. Now, and there's another philosophy out there about once you hit the age of 40, you need enzymes. No, you don't. If you give your body the B vitamins in high potency, you'll make the enzymes, because B vitamins, all vitamins, are technically coenzymes. They're involved in the enzyme processes. But what we're talking about here is the detoxification process and minerals. So take a look at the minerals you're getting. A lot of them, sometimes you're not even getting 100 milligrams of calcium. So what I suggest is that you get a high potency multivitamin for the mornings. That way you'll have your energy to carry you throughout the day. And then in the evening, get yourself a high-potency multi-mineral. And here's how you can tell you need minerals. Aside from the fact of them being essential for the detoxification process, if you have leg aches, charley horses, backaches, spasms, palpitations, restless leg, TMJ, the kids complain about growing pains. Whenever you hear that, whenever I hear that, I know that you need minerals. Keep that in mind, and you can see why you need the iron, zinc, manganese, molybdenum, because they support your normal detoxification process. So you want to do that. You want to make sure that you bring in plenty of minerals. And I guarantee you all those things, that the aches and pains, they'll all disappear. You'll sleep better, especially if you toss and turn all night long. You'll sleep like a baby with minerals. And when you get up in the morning, the beautiful thing is you won't feel drugged. Okay, so much for the detox system. What we want to do now is we want to cleanse the blood. We want to try to get as many toxins out of the bloodstream as is possible. And there are 3 fabulous herbs for that: red clover, yellow dock, and burdock root. They are fabulous. In fact, red clover, there was a product out in the marketplace years ago, and it still may be, I don't remember it. And but the gentleman built a tea around red clover, and I think he had burdock root in there, maybe sheep's sorrel, and some other echinacea, maybe golden seal. Great blood detoxifier. He used it for cancer. Essiac is another product that comes to mind, also used for cancer and built on the same thing. Part of it is detoxing the bloodstream and at the same time stimulating the immune system. Your immune system is your first line of defense to slow down aging and to eliminate disease. So look at those herbs. They're going to be fabulous for cleansing the blood. The next thing we want to do is go back to the process of the liver. And as I said, one of the things that the liver does is that it stores the toxins in the fat. Now, what we want to do, because of the danger of the fat being used as building material, thus incorporating a toxin into something, breast, brain, testicle, ovary, okay? We want to eliminate that possible danger. So we want to get rid of the toxins. And how do we do that? Well, as you can see, the first thing I say is exercise. Exercise is fabulous. Even if you can only do 20 minutes a day, it really doesn't matter. As long as you get your cardiovascular system up, that's the key. So what are some of the things you can do? Well, obviously the first thing everybody says is go to the gym. Well, if you can't afford a gym, although I know Planet Fitness is only $10 a month, I know because I go. And if you can't afford and don't want to spend the money on a gym, because there's a lot of other things you can do out there, but if you can go to a gym, do it. Work out. If you can't do that, join someplace, if you can afford it, where they have a swimming pool, because some people will say, well, I can't do this or that, because okay, let me back up. See, my mind is a computer, but sometimes it jumps tracks. One of the first and most inexpensive things you can do is walking. And here's a method and technique for that. Well, it's really a timing issue. Walk around the block. Time yourself. How long did it take you? 8 minutes, 10 minutes. Well, tomorrow you're going to do the same walk, except you're going to do it in 9 minutes. And the next day, 8 minutes, and 7 minutes, and 6 minutes. And when you get down to when you got a nice little clip going, add a block. Okay? Now you're back up to 15 minutes. Now you got 2 blocks. Okay? 14 minutes, 13 minutes. I think you get the picture. And that way you don't have to spend a dime, and you can walk to your heart's content, walk in the woods if you can. And don't be like some of these runners who run on the highway. Look at me, I'm running, I'm beautiful. I'm breathing in carbon dioxide, but it's all right, okay? Don't do that. Walk in the woods if you can. Find a park walk around your neighborhood when there's no traffic. That is the least expensive and most efficient way of burning toxins, really, because what's going to happen is you're going to use up the immediate sugar in your bloodstream, and then your body's going to go after the fat as fuel, and you're going to eliminate some of the toxins, and that's why we got to drink water to get them out of the system. Another benefit from exercising is oxygenation. And when you do that, you will oxygenate your mind, because 25% of all the oxygen that you bring into your system, your body's divine intelligence relegates 25% of it to feed your mind. So exercising can also be a great way of putting off senility, dementia, Alzheimer's, even though there's other causes, but this is one, at least you know you will be feeding your mind and helping from that degree. Also, cancer cannot live in an oxygen-rich environment. So those are things to do from an exercising point of view. If you got the money, go to a place that has a pool. That way, if there's pressure on your knees, you take all of the pressure off of your joints, especially if you're carrying more weight than you should. You'll take all the pressure off your joints, and at the same time, you will increase your cardiovascular heart rate and circulation, which is the key in what we really want to do. Next up are supplements. And there are supplements out there that are great at burning fat. The key nutrients you want to look for, interestingly enough, are the same ones we used in the liver formula: choline, inositol, methionine, lecithin. Now, lecithin comes as an oil and as a granule. And what's interesting about the oil, if you see oil, first thing comes to mind is fat. But lecithin has the unique ability to bind with other fats, and yet it's water dispersible. So by bringing lecithin in and it binding to other fats, you will be able to urinate it out of your system. So that's the beauty of that. And also some, unsaturated fatty acids will also help. And when it comes to, so I told you the vitamins: choline, inositol, methionine, lecithin, unsaturated fatty acid. When it comes to herbs, there really isn't a lot that's going to burn fat. I read somewhere years ago chickweed, and I use that in one of my formulas for burning fat. But the key is, more than anything else, vitamins and minerals are your key to excellent health. Herbs, and I use them in everything I do. Almost every one of my formulas has herbs, but the reality is that they work like drugs more than they do nourishment, and this is really all about nourishing. Next up is fasting. When it comes to fasting, there are different types of fast, and I've done them all actually. And the only true fast that there is, from my point of view, is water. Pure water, distilled water, is the only true fast. Because what happens is you go through your stored energy, the fat, you go through the glycose, you go through glycogen, stored sugar, and once you go through those two, you're into the fat, and then once you go through all the fat, then your body goes after all diseased and weak cells. So at the end of the process, you have a rejuvenated, incredibly healthy body. There's another fast out there that you can do that is easier to do. It doesn't necessarily stimulate detoxing and cleansing, but you will lose weight on it, and you will get rid of some material, some toxins, and it's called the Master Cleanse, and this is a molasses, honey, and lemons in distilled water, and you can find that formula probably on the internet. Next up, I would also recommend the mucusless healing diet. This was something promoted by a man who's since long gone, Professor Arnold Ehret. It's a thin little book, and it's really great because what mucus does is it clogs up the orifices. It clogs up your system. It is a reservoir for disease. So the less mucus you can produce, the better off you'll be. And your mucus producers are dairy and grains. So be mindful. And again, we're back to less is best. And wrapping up, the last step we want to do is we want to eliminate, remember I told you made 100 million, 200 million corrupted cells, and your immune system went after them. Because your immune system is like the INS. And being here in Texas, we see the green and white cars all the time, so it was an easy analogy for me. And the INS, your immune system goes around and says to each cell, do you belong here? Are you self or are you non-self? If you don't have identity cards, you're non-self. And in that case, you need to be eliminated before you can create harm in this body. Now, if your immune system is not up to par, then some of those cells are going to multiply, just like we got the $5 million. Well, imagine one cell becoming 2, 4, 8, 16. Do the math. Within, I think, 40 days, you'll have 1.6 billion cells, and that's when you know you've got a problem. And why does it take 1 billion cells to let you know you've got a problem? For the simple reason that you've got over 1 trillion, I think there's something like 50 trillion in your body. So if you want to slow down the aging process, build the immune system. Key vitamins, vitamin A goes to your thymus, matures your killer cells. Vitamin C, zinc as a mineral, cysteine as an amino acid. If you're dealing with cancer, look at selenium as an additional thing. And herbs, well, golden seal root is fabulous. You only catch 22 with golden seal, it will lower your sugar. So if you do golden seal and echinacea, as a lot of people do during the winter to kill infections, make sure you follow up with a probiotic. Echinacea stimulates interferon, great for the immune system. Also fabulous as a lymphatic cleanser, which is the way us herbalists used to use it before we learned about it stimulating the immune system. Your mushrooms, shiitake, maitake, cordyceps, which is actually a fungus. So all of these things will build your immune system, and that will slow down the aging process. Detoxing and cleansing will keep you healthy. So I've said my piece. Now, if there are any questions, I'd love to take them.
Thank you, Michael. That was full of great information. We do have some questions that we want to get right into. Okay. Our first question is, how often should I cleanse?
Depends on your lifestyle. Like I said earlier, if you work in a beauty parlor, salon, you're a cop, you're out in the world, you're breathing fumes, you may want to do it every quarter. And consider this from another point of view. Because you're bringing in food supplements, you could actually stay on a cleansing program forever. But, excess leads to rejection. So I would say at least quarterly for somebody who's really in a toxic environment. For those of us who are health food people, I would say doing it maybe 2-3 times a year would be appropriate.
Got it. Thank you. Next question, is detoxing and cleansing vital to combat aging?
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, because the chemicals, the toxic material in the body is corrupting the cells. And when you corrupt the cells, you slow down the aging process. I mean, all you got to do is look at people who smoke, people who work under fluorescent lighting. They look sickly. Why? Because the cells are corrupted. So yes, detoxing and cleansing will slow down the aging process. Better than any of the cosmetics that they sell that are full of chemicals that are going to speed up the process internally.
Okay, thank you. Next, are there ways to do small things daily to aid in detoxing?
Yeah, I would eat lots of onions and garlic for 2 reasons. And by the way, never eat onions off of a salad bar. And some of you kids may remember when you got sick, your grandmother took an onion, cut it in half, and put it on the nightstands. Onion draws bacteria to it. It also is rich in sulfur, so that stimulates and nourishes the immune system. Garlic is great because it'll help with dissolving cholesterol, which is a form of fat in itself, so it'll help that way. Plus, no one will get near you. You won't get sick. It's wonderful. Also, I like to play. Also, lots of greens, chlorophyll, parsley. Look at some of your diuretics like watermelon. These things will, because they're diuretics, they'll help flush. Parsley is rich in chlorophyll, which will help purify the blood. So those are some things you can do.
Thank you. That was interesting about the onions. I did not know that. Next question. Can you offer any insight on detox teas? Are they helpful?
Yeah, if they're legitimate. Yeah, look for, I think a good foundation would be to get hold of the ESSIAC formula and take a look at that. Even though it's for cancer, there's a lot of detoxing herbs in there. A lot of the detox teas were designed originally to help people get past the drug testing. I'm not a fan of that. Plus the fact, keep in mind that it's really the vitamins and minerals that are going to facilitate true and effective detoxing and cleansing.
All right, thank you for that insight. Last question, can apple cider vinegar play a role in detox?
Yeah, to a degree, for the simple reason that it's rich in potassium, so there may be some diuretic benefits. It's also alkalizing, so there's some benefits there. But if I were working with a client, it's not one of the things I would say to them, oh, you got to have that. I would say, work with the Detox and Cleanse program, drink lots of distilled water, clean up your diet, think about fasting. And by the way, nobody can fast if they have a tendency towards hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. Hyperglycemia, diabetes, yes. Low blood sugar, no, from a fasting point of view.
Good to know. All right, we are going to wrap this up now. Thank you all again for attending, and thank you, Michael, for all the information. If you have not already done so, please register for our upcoming webinars. For more information, please visit LuckyVitamin.com and search keyword webinar. Please see the screen for an exclusive promo code. Reminder, this code is active now and will be active for the next 72 hours. Thank you.